confused about, right? So everybody loves to talk about back in the day, it was a higher marriage rate, right? That's what the parents expected of that man to do. When he wanted to take her out on a date, they expected him to show up and be able to pay for that date. They expected him to open the door. It was normal for a man to show up to take you on a first date with flowers. It was normal for you to expect the man to pay all your bills. It was
No,
normal.
it wasn't.
These were things. Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. There was nothing normal about paying somebody bills just from GP
I'm
or
saying
dating.
like to not dating. No. I'm saying once you get into the marriage and into the whatever, like certain things were expected, right? I'm talking like broad spectrum. When people are talking about their expectations, when you are on that first date, if you hear something come out of that woman's mouth several times that doesn't align with what you're willing to do, instead of telling her, we'll lower it or change it, or that's why you're not married. If you know you can't do it, just walk away.
No,
What time
hold on.
frame are you referring to when
She's
you
talking about
expect it for a man to come in and provide? Are you talking about the back in the days?
No. See,
I'm asking Laisha.
No, so the problem with what Laisha said about that time period, right?
What time period was that?
She's talking about the early 60s or whatever when she talked about courting back then.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Hold on, wait, Bruce, hold on. So the problem with that assumption, right, is that men was definitely able to be themselves back then because every woman wasn't getting an expensive date. A lot of the times the date was just going up to the creek and looking at the moon or watching the sunrise or walking in the park or a quick, like they weren't when you went and took a girl if you ask your grandfather what was his him and his wife first date, they would tell you it was probably more than likely something simple. It wasn't what is expected today where you're expected to go all out. A man was able to go up to a woman and be himself.
He missed it.
It was more.
See, these ladies' intentions is to keep you arguing from a defensive standpoint. They don't want to talk about the women and the difference in the women back then and the difference in the women today. See, they don't want to talk about how it was a big difference in the women. All right. Like the brother said, listen, I remember my mama telling me, see, Tommy, these girls don't know how lucky they got it. Y'all got all this money. Listen, back when I was growing up, you knew he ain't have no money. Either you liked the guy or you didn't, because the last thing you thought was that he had some money. You see, they were women with that mindset. All right, they got this mindset of that you supposed to show up and act like a rapper, start spending all kinds of money because they listen to this music and they watch these videos and they think you're supposed to look like that when you show up and treat them like that when you show up. All right, or you ain't good enough, and it don't matter what condition she in. All right, because for her it don't matter. Some woman who want everything, she want everything. Ask her about her list, then ask her what she offer. She'll get offended. Why? Because she don't offer nothing, and she won't have the audacity to demand all of this stuff from some man who don't even know her. Yeah, that's the difference in the mindset. All right, these women on the panels weren't my grandma.
You missed one thing. You missed the critical part. When she stated that back in those days in the 1960s, it was expected for the man to come in and provide. Correct, Laisha, right?
Yeah.
She didn't compensate for the type of women those women were back then.
It don't even matter.
Those women, it did matter.
I mean, it don't matter in regards to courting because, like, obviously men and women are different today. I wasn't even talking about the part, like the whole provide. There was never no expectation that a man had to provide upon courting. That was never an expectation.
No, I'm not talking about that.
He not arguing with you, bro. You took it wrong.
About the children.
What I'm saying
is,
after you got in them, once you got her in a relationship and a marriage, there was an expectation of providing.
Nah,
but courting, going on a date,
that's not true.
I gotta
No,
There
pop
was
cap
an
on
he
that.
was not
expectation
expected
that
to.
the man was supposed to be provider and protector. This
Yes.
stuff fell
Yes,
apart
but not
whenever
during the
women got the
courting
right to
phase.
open up
No,
their
in the
own bank
courting
accounts.
phase.
No, he wasn't,
Excuse
man.
me, from a woman, there when I was growing up, I was a teenager, and these older women, this is in the 90s, these older women, I sat in the beauty shop and they told me, don't you talk to no man unless he doing something for you. He got to be paying something, he got to buy you something, he got to do something for you to
See, she want to give you this spill like these chicks in the beauty salon represented women of that time. No, they was probably some 304s in that hair salon. Listen to how they was talking. That's exactly who they were in that hair salon. But she want to make that abroad and represent all the women of that time feeling that way. No, because that's not the only kind of information she got from women, but that's the only kind of information she want to display right now because she think it make a point. It don't.
something, he got to do something for you to show you that he like you. You don't give him nothing, you don't talk to him unless he come with some money. I thought that was absurd, don't get me wrong, but I can guarantee you them older women
Used to
back in the
say a
day,
wet
that
ass
is
and
what
a
That's
they were.
dry
true.
wallet
I
don't
think
That's
mix.
true. I
I
don't know
think
why
they
Exactly.
that's the
30 years
argument.
ago,
I
I
didn't.
was
no,
being
they was
taught that,
I'm
and
modest.
those
agreeing
were
with I'm
those
agreeing
old
with you,
women.
Laisha, on that. I
Sharon, what
did the
are you
research on that. The men were expected to do it, even if they couldn't do it, and sometimes they all work together.
What
But
Right.
for
bill was a man paying? What
expectation,
bill was a man paying back then when he took if a 17, 18-year-old dude went up and took a girl on a date because the average age of marriage back then was like 21, 22. When he walked up and he was gonna pay, who bills was he paying? Because it wasn't hers, because she ain't
I'm gonna
got no
tell you
fucking
right
bill.
now, in the
She ain't got no
1960s,
damn bill. She lived
in
with
the
her parents.
19 well, this is my understanding. In the 1960s on back, the women were mostly, I would say overwhelmingly mostly homemakers.
right?
A lot of them couldn't even open up their own bank accounts until what date was that? When a woman can
80s,
go and
in
open
the
up her bank
80s.
account,
Like the
couldn't even damn
70s.
vote. First of all, the men
Oh,
were the providers. It was actually an expectation, but my argument wasn't
Oh,
whether or not it
listen.
was an expectation. My argument still stands that I'm granting you the argument regardless. If the men were expected to provide back then, think about the type of women, the mentalities of the women that they were compelled to provide for versus the women now. You have women that can be provided for today and still will push back on your ass.
But this is so here's the opposite side of that. What is it from the woman's perspective, right? When we're talking to our grandmothers and they're not having the same conversations that they're having with us as their granddaughters, as they're having with you as their grandsons. Because what I'm trying to get men to understand is these men are saying, oh, our grandmas were such good women. They were married women. They were this, they were that. And they're coming to us and saying, baby, don't be like me. I was miserable. Then what are we to do with that information when the man is praising this woman for being this way, but she's saying she was this way and absolutely miserable?
You notice how these ladies always skip past the accountability and try to flip the blame back on the men? All right, of everything he said, they never addressed none of it. They just flipped the conversation back onto something a man did. They just moved the goalpost. He make a point. She take it back to back in the days when she wasn't even around. She just hearing these stories. Guess who was around, baby girl? I was. I was. And guess who did talk to grandma and was around grandma? I was. I was. And guess who was around granddaddy? The boys. The boys. Y'all don't want to talk about granddaddy's story, about how he worked his ass off in that plant from can't see morning to can't see night. So grandma could sit her ass in that house all day and y'all could get to know her and hear all her goddamn victim stories about how she wasn't happy. Yeah, because see, grandma was my baby. Believe that I love my grandmama to death, but I love the shit out my granddaddy. My granddaddy worked his ass off to provide for everybody. Never got no respect. You know who house they call that? They call that mama house. Mama ain't never worked no goddamn way. That was granddaddy house. Granddaddy bought that house for mama. He worked in that plant till he died for grandmama. Who, guess what? It never seemed to be a goddamn enough. That's what I remember most about grandma. It never seemed to be a goddamn enough. But you know what grandma was? She was smart. She was smart. She ain't go talk that shit to my grandfather. When he said, that's enough, girl, I said, that's enough. She was smart enough to shut her damn mouth and go ahead on about her business. She had this thing called respect. See, she ain't know back then at the time, but it was called submissive. Back, remember when you could tell your wife something and she thought she had to honor it. She needed to honor what you said. You back then, you know, when a woman knew her feelings wasn't the biggest issue that needed to be addressed in the family. Her happiness didn't come before the family. All right. She worked together with my grandfather so they could have the family, regardless of their issues with one another. It was something bigger. It was called the family. See, y'all wouldn't know nothing about that. My grandma had 11 children. I couldn't even count the grandkids. All of us ran through that. My grandmama never took her ass to work. Who you think provided the food we ate every single goddamn night? Ain't miss a meal. Who you think provided that? Grandma didn't work. Just wasn't never enough for her. All right, I used to hear the stories, but I know who my grandfather was. I know what he meant. I knew it wouldn't have been no family without him. Wouldn't have been no mama house without him. All right, you ladies want to forget granddaddy. I won't let you. I won't let you. I know he was the glue that held that shit together. All right, without him, it wouldn't have been no goddamn family. My grandmama would have been like y'all, a bunch of rebels.
Your grandmama was miserable in her marriage?
I actually don't know. Sadly, my grandmother passed when she was 8, right? I mean, when I was 8.
Why you
But
let
what
Sweetie
I'm saying
bag you
is,
so easy like that?
is that a lot of women specifically are saying that.
No, that was just a move to duck the accountability. All right, she had to give a horror story, a victim story. All right, grandma was a victim instead of a willing participant to keep her family going. All right, and it was more to grandma than just her self-interest, her own self-interest. You ladies can't think of nothing outside of what you want.
The mindset that is happening right now is something that has been passed down. Like, a lot of women do have their grandmothers. A lot of women have older moms, right? And they're not just waking up and saying, I'm going to be this way. They're having an old school woman in their ear being like, don't always keep you a rainy day fund for when that man try and leave or when he try and cheat. Don't.
See, grandma used to like to sit in the house and tell all these stories about, how, but then you find out later on that Uncle Jonathan wasn't never your goddamn uncle. All right, but she skipped, grandma will skip over that quick. All right, yeah, grandma had her boyfriends. All right, look, we don't want to hear this. Y'all don't know what y'all talking about. All right, listen, y'all just need the story to make y'all look like a victim. All right, y'all professional victims. And that's the only way you can make a point if you can be a victim. You ain't no damn victim. You ain't your grandmama in no kind of way. And we don't want to hear this stuff from y'all. These selfish, ruthlessly selfish individuals. Okay, y'all don't give a damn about the family. All right, it's all about what y'all want and what y'all think y'all deserve. You deserve what you earn in life. And guess what? If you ain't get it, you ain't deserve it.
No coochie. Don't do. These are
Yeah, but
things that they came up with. They're telling us don't be miserable like them, but you guys are praising them. So what are we to do with that?
are we talking about these 40-year-old grandmothers, 50-year-old grandmothers? Like,
No.
what are we talking about? Like, who?
60s,
What age
70s,
group?
80s. Hand to God, I'm telling you, this is really going on. These old, elderly women are saying, I was miserable. Don't be like me. So now what do we do with that information?
Why was she miserable?
Because
She's
she couldn't leave.
Couldn't believe what?
Fellas, they like to give these horror stories like Granddaddy was happy with ungrateful ass grandma. They like to paint this picture that, Granddaddy was happy, living the life of Riley, going to work from can't see morning, staying there to can't see night. So grandma could sit in that house all day and whine and cook and be a social butterfly. All right, that's the hell grandma was going through. That's all that hell she had to go through. All that hell grandma had to go through with a man who worked his ass off so he could provide a life for her. And all that he created, he was responsible. He taught us to be stand up. I know what my grandfather instilled in me. All right. All right. I know what my daddy instilled in me. I know what I come from. All right. All right. I come from a long line of men, hard charges. All right. And don't let women run us. All right. You ain't gonna never come and tell me shit. All right. Y'all can't run this on me. All right. Because I remember grandma and I remember granddaddy and I remember what happened. All right. I remember, granddaddy had another family, whole other family on the other side of town. But Uncle Jonathan wasn't never my goddamn uncle. He wasn't my uncle. And he never ever came to the house until my grandfather passed away. Yeah, but I know y'all just want to skip over that part and get back to talking about how grandpa had grandma under all this pressure to sit in the house and whine all day while he was working his ass off, working himself to death. Yeah, we know you ladies like to just forget about granddaddy. We ain't gonna let you. You think being the ungrateful ass lady that grandma was all the time to him had something to do with him wanting some attention from somewhere else? Maybe somebody who would appreciate something?
Couldn't believe what?
No, I'm asking.
Yeah.
It was a question.
Damn, she
on.
wanted to leave her man
Are we
because she
going to
couldn't.
act,
You know,
are we
no
gonna
fault.
act
Divorce has
like
been around for
our
quite a while.
grandmothers did not have to be married because one,
Fair use, family. Fair use.
they didn't work, never had a job, didn't have much of an education. That's some of them. That was one of my grandmothers. The other one had education and a very good job. However, back in the day, you didn't leave your husband. You had kids. Where were you going to go? You got multiple kids. Where are you going? You can't move in with your family. You got multiple kids.
Listen to her. She talking like that's a bad thing, that you can't leave your husband, because she need a way to leave. She need a way to leave. Grandma wasn't looking for a way to leave. Y'all want to skip over that. She wasn't looking for a way to leave her family. She wasn't looking for a way to tear her family apart so she could go be happy.
You got to stay with that man.
They wasn't stepping
Also,
back then either.
they couldn't have bank accounts. They couldn't buy property. They couldn't do anything. They had to have a man to live.
Yeah, so that man had to take care of her. That's why it wasn't no such thing as a deadbeat back then, because he had to provide. So he did provide for an ungrateful, provide for you, Bohemian. He had to provide for you. Listen, this is what a man would get for providing for you: a professional victim.
A life, because they couldn't stay in their parents' house because their parents weren't going to keep taking care of them. They had to get married to someone so that they can be taken care of. Let's not.
Listen, they had to. They was forced to. And she full of shit and don't know what she talking about. She just need to get you in your feelings and keep you there so you can agree with her. All right? She can't back none of this stuff up.
act like that didn't
So-
happen,
so
and that
to
wasn't
Sweeney's
even
point-
100 years ago.
Actually,
To Sweeney's point, freedom
single-
broke. So to Sweeney's point, freedom broke the home. If that's the case,
Actually, single women were able to open up bank accounts and buy homes and own property.
When?
It was. They've always been, almost probably since like the 1920s. The only difference was that married women had to answer, like, hey, if you were married, you had to have your husband sign off on it because he was more than likely the person who had to bear the responsibility of the debt. But a single woman could open up a bank account if she wanted to. She was not hindered to. It just so happened that most of the women back then,
1960s.
that's for women
1960s.
that's for women who are married. Single women were always
Women, period.
No, it wasn't women, period. You got to read the article.
Okay.
Can you share the article that we're talking about?
well, I just looked it up. Here you go. Voting rights, 1920, women gained the right to vote in 19th Amendment. Bank accounts, 1960 to the 1970s, women began to open bank accounts more freely. Now, that's not including black women because we know there was a lot of bias. If you was a white-owned bank, you still, even though they gave black women the right or women the right, they still had pushback as if black women open bank accounts until we really got some traction on that. 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act made it legal to deny a woman credit or bank account. So 1974, they came in with the Equal Credit Opportunity that made it okay. So it made it illegal to deny a woman credit or bank account. And then
So people could just deny me a credit card because I was a woman?
Yes.
Not because I didn't.
Yeah.
So let's not act like
before
For whatever reason.
For everything he said, that was the only part they managed to hear, ain't it? For everything they said, because they never listened to nothing he said. They just needed to find something that they could get enraged about. That's all it's about. All right, this ain't about getting to the issue. This ain't about fixing the problem. This about them needing to be right.
discrimination wasn't a thing.
Before that day. Now,
regardless of how silly, crazy they sound.
The only reason, the thing was that the reason why a lot of women weren't able to, they had the ability. It was never illegal for them to not open up bank accounts as single women. The problem is that single women never really had the income or the ability to, a lot of the times, and they often required co-signers. So it was more difficult for women to open up bank accounts because of the financial aspect of it. So it was easy to deny a woman. So she often would require like somebody to co-sign for it. Y'all know how people felt about co-signing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So that's why
banks used to require a husband's signature.
Yeah, if she was married, she required a husband's signature. But if she was single, she could get one. But oftentimes, if you're a single woman, you didn't make
regardless of marital status.
How do you? No, I'm telling you right now.
She had to go and get married. I'm telling you.
No, she did not. I'm telling you, she did not have to go and get married to open up a bank account. I'm telling you.
Why would they make an act? Why would they make a equal, hold on real quick. Why would they make in 1974? Why would they make the Equal Credit Opportunity Act? Why would they make it illegal to deny a woman credit?
Because people were discriminating.
Because people were discriminating.
Let me finish the wording so we can understand the context of why the wording even exists. Why in 1974 did they make an act that made it illegal to deny a woman credit or bank account simply because of her sex or marital status? So why would they include marital status in the link?
Let me explain it.
Before this, banks often required a husband's signature. So if she was married,
because the point they were making is if they were single, they weren't able to get bank accounts, and this what Sweeney's saying debunks that.
But even if she
had a marital status, if her marital status was married.
If she,
I'm
telling you what it was.
Other than married.
If she was not married, oftentimes because of the financial status of women at that time, a lot of them didn't have the income or the network or the net worth to be able to take out loans and things like that. So for her to have that type of ability, she would often need a co-signer. A lot of people didn't just co-sign loans for people and co-sign bank accounts and things like that. So she could open up one, but it was often harder for a single woman to do that. That does not mean it was illegal for her.
Let me give you one example. What is the oldest business in the world?
Why does that matter?
Just answer the simple question.
This is interesting.
What is the oldest business in the world?
I'm gonna humor you.
And then don't require you to have a W-2 or bank account. You can get the money right in your pocket.
Prostitution.
So prostitutes in that time, there's a book you got to read. I forgot the book, but I'm gonna get the book. Prostitutes struggled. They had the capital to open a bank account, but because of their marital status, the single woman that was participating in harlotry could not open up a bank account.
What
proof? Because they couldn't substantiate where they were getting the funds
they
from.
They had boatloads of money coming into the bank saying, I need a bank account so I can put my money.
So you mean to tell me if they did something illegal and then they tried to go to the bank and the bank had to ask them, where are you getting all this? The IRS would ask, where are you getting all this cash from? And she would have to be able to substantiate that.
Actually, during that era, and let me look up because I read it in the same book. During that era, IRS wasn't actually cracking down as hard as it was until they started having access to. I'm telling you, let me go ahead and if I got to keep looking.
Crack down on drug dealers at the same time.
I'm telling you, bro. How you think the motherfucking what's the dude name from New York that he was actually.
Fellas, I'm not exactly sure, so I don't want to weigh in right here. But I still think this conversation is kind of important in case y'all want to let me know which one of them are right in the comments.
How he got bopped was because of he couldn't substantiate his money. So if you're doing some type of illegal activity and you go to a bank and you start depositing large amounts of cash into a bank account with no way to prove it, the IRS gonna crack down on your ass.
Well, they first got.
I mean, number one, they ain't that stupid to try to go and do that. All right, most of them women wasn't trying to open bank accounts. Okay, maybe one or two of them was and didn't have the rest of the requirements. You never know how that could have went down. All right, they just gonna point to they told her no, and the reason automatically just because she was a woman. And that, I'm not saying that wasn't the reason. All right, listen. Back then, women didn't have much. It's like most of the things they acquired, they got it from a man, just like now.
To prove that the money you have came from illegal activity. A lot of there was an era, a small era where people wasn't able to actually wire or people wasn't able to get paid via check. They had to get paid via actual cash or coins or whatever or some shit like that. And you had to go and deposit your shit into the bank.
Right, but if
they was not able, there was a verification leak. There was a missing verification process.
No, it wasn't. IRS never missed on verification.
Then IRS was able to intervene and see that and corroborate where your money was coming from.
No, the IRS have always been able to intervene and verify where your money came from. Okay. That's the whole reason why they was able to crack down on so many people. Just
all right, well, let me get the lingo again. Let me get the lingo on that then. So
I think we're going down a rabbit hole right now. We might be slipping.
If you want to keep going
a little bit,
you got to see
we're slipping on the topic a little bit.
A lot of this technology, a lot of these processes, we acting like we had a lot of these processes in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
When these women were actually making IRS, right?
There was women making money, but they wasn't making money from employment. They were making money from employment that they wasn't supposed to have. There were some women that were employed that wasn't even supposed to have a job because of their race or because of their ethnic background.
Yeah. You still had you have to follow the logic. You said you use prostitution as a
I used an extreme one, but because I read a book that was stuck in my head because it was extreme.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, damn. So where did the prostitutes? How were they able to? Where the hell was they storing their money at?
What do you mean? What was drug dealers storing their money at?
That's the mattress, the closet.
I don't know what's be going on with this dude sometimes. What you mean where they was storing their money at, man?
Like, what we
Mattress, the
doing?
closet, under the box.
But what do you do when
The
you want
wall,
to put your shit in the
like-
bank?
They didn't open up bank accounts because they were prostitutes. You had to substantiate how you made that money. Banks reported your money to the IRS the same way that they reported everybody else's money. When you started making too much money or start making enough money, you couldn't substantiate how you were making that money. The IRS would crack down on you.
Okay,
so if you was
okay. I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole.
I don't even know why we wound up here.
Well, so the
We're
point
already
was,
there.
I
Because
was
we're
just
talking about-
trying to prove the point that our grandmothers were tethered to men because of many different things. So I want us to realize that the freedom, we had this freedom a long time ago, but we're not, women have not been socialized to really act on their freedom. It's been.
She tripping. That's all they been doing. That's all y'all been doing is acting on your freedom. How y'all think y'all got like this? With all this freedom. This the freedom y'all fought for. The freedom to be in the street. So y'all in the street. And we just come get y'all when we need y'all. Because can you listen to you? We can't do nothing with y'all. We can't believe in this. We not going to believe in this because y'all need us to in order for y'all to be able to get what y'all want. All right, we don't give a damn. We give a damn about what we want. And what we want is y'all acting right. And you think you're going to be a rebel and sit here and be a professional victim and that's going to get you somewhere with a man? It ain't, baby girl. You're going to be everything he trying to avoid. Y'all sit up here with these long faces and your only defense for everything is that you were some kind of victim. She was some kind of victim. They were some kind of victims. Anything to escape the accountability and you trying to get somebody to accept you for who you are. And we keep telling you, hell no. That's not what we want. Y'all not going to give us what y'all think we should have. Y'all going to give us what we want or we going to leave y'all in the street. That's all to it. It ain't going to be no other way. Baby girl, ladies, y'all don't have no way of making us do none of this stuff. None. Y'all don't have no way at all. All y'all can do is keep trying to gaslight, talk, and get us to feel y'all pain as professional victims. We sick of it. We tired of hearing it. We need y'all to do something. We need y'all to get better. All right, you see how we striving? We making strives to get better so we can be better men. Y'all ain't trying to get better. Y'all trying to escape the accountability so y'all can stay like y'all are and give us as much of y'all loyalty as y'all feel like giving us for our protection and our provision. And we telling y'all gonna stay in the street. We not just gonna take what y'all got. Y'all gonna get what we want or y'all gonna stay in the street.
It's been increasing decade by decade by decade. And this is not a surprise. This is not anything new. We're acting like this is something new. When my mother was called the modern woman, and she was born in 1951, she's a modern woman according to the men that used to date them back in this free love era of the 60s when she was coming of age. So this is not, this modern woman conversation is not new. These women have been using this freedom increasingly since my mother's age, since she came of age at